Brussels, a city that has become the quiet heartbeat of Europe's defence strategy, wakes to a crisp October morning. Inside NATO headquarters, the mood is deliberate, intense, and quietly historic. Flags ripple outside in the wind as defence ministers from across the alliance arrive, one by one, their motorcades sweeping past layers of security and camera flashes. Today's meeting is not a routine gathering. It comes at a time when Europe's security order feels more fragile than it has in decades. Russian fighter jets have again breached European airspace in recent weeks, triggering alerts from Norway to Romania. Ukraine, exhausted yet defiant, continues to fight on multiple fronts. And within NATO, the question of how far the alliance should go in supporting Kyiv remains the defining dilemma of this era. As the ministers gather for the traditional group photo, the choreography of diplomacy unfolds. France's Catherine Vautrin stands beside Belgium's Theo Franken, Germany's Boris Pistorius, Albania's Blarina Abrajda, and Greece's Thanasis Davakis. Smiles are measured, hands clasped tightly, eyes scanning the cameras, each face representing a different national calculus, a different degree of risk tolerance. To one side, US Secretary of Defence Pete Hegseth exchanges quiet words with his British counterpart John Healey. The two share a brief laugh, but beneath that moment lies a serious reality. Both men know the decisions made in Brussels this week could define Europe's security for generations. Hegseth, a former soldier turned politician, has made no secret of his intent to reshape NATO's approach. Less bureaucracy, more firepower. Since his appointment, he has argued that the alliance must move from rhetoric to readiness. His presence here signals Washington's commitment, but also its expectation that Europe shoulder a greater share of the burden. The formal photo is taken, flashes strobe, and the ministers begin to disperse. What follows behind closed doors will not be seen by cameras, but it is here that the real story begins. Inside the main conference hall, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte calls the meeting to order. His voice, calm but commanding, carries the weight of urgency. He reminds the ministers that the alliance's unity is its greatest strength, and that unity in this moment cannot be taken for granted. The skies over Europe have become a front line once again, he says, and we must ensure that every incursion is met not just with detection, but with deterrence. The ministers nod. Over the past months, Russian aircraft have repeatedly violated NATO airspace, testing radar responses, probing defences, and measuring political resolve. These incidents, though often intercepted without escalation, are psychological warfare as much as tactical manoeuvres. Ukraine's defence minister appears on the main screen via secure link from Kyiv. His message is unflinching. We are holding, but we need more. More air defences, more ammunition, more resolve. The room listens in silence. For many ministers, this is not just a call for help. It's a mirror reflecting Europe's own vulnerabilities. Across the table, Boris Pistorius of Germany leans forward. Berlin has been one of the largest European donors of weapons to Ukraine, but public fatigue is setting in at home. He acknowledges the domestic pressure, but insists if Russia succeeds in Ukraine, it will not stop there. Our defence begins in Kyiv from France. Catherine Vautrin echoes the sentiment, but adds a note of caution. Paris supports a stronger European pillar within NATO, a vision of strategic autonomy that doesn't always align perfectly with Washington's approach. We must be united, she says, but we must also be capable. Her words hint at the ongoing tension between dependence and independence, between solidarity and sovereignty. Theo Franken of Belgium, representing the host nation, keeps his remarks concise. We stand with Ukraine, he says simply, but standing must mean something. The conversation then turns to air defence integration, a topic that has consumed military planners for months. The alliance is finalising a new Sky Shield initiative, a networked system linking missile defence batteries across Europe under a shared command. The plan aims to plug the gaps that Russian incursions have exposed, especially over the Baltic and Black Seas. Pete Hegseth takes the floor. He speaks in the plain, direct tone that has made him a polarising figure in Washington, but a decisive one here. We're not just here to talk about defending Europe, he says. We're here to make sure that when aggression happens, and it will, our response is immediate, lethal, and unified. His words reverberate. The Americans are pressing hard for readiness, for stockpiles to be replenished, logistics streamlined, and national red tape cut. Hegseth's aides circulate a new US proposal for joint ammunition production, leveraging private industry across NATO countries to meet the demand for artillery shells. John Healey of the United Kingdom follows. He highlights Britain's continued role in training Ukrainian troops and pledges expanded naval cooperation in the Black Sea. This is a long war of wills, he says, and Russia must know that we will not blink first. Outside the meeting hall, journalists gather in clusters, whispering into microphones. The mood is one of both determination and fatigue. Many European publics have grown weary of war headlines. Inflation, energy prices, and election cycles are testing political stamina. But inside these walls, the sense of mission remains. The Icelandic Foreign Minister, Þorgerður Katrín Gunnarsdóttir, meets briefly with Hegseth in the corridor. Though Iceland has no army, its strategic location in the North Atlantic makes it critical to NATO's surveillance network. Their exchange, polite but purposeful, centres on radar cooperation and early warning coordination. Every piece of the NATO puzzle matters. As the afternoon progresses, attention shifts to the alliance's defence spending. Mark Rutte reminds the ministers of the commitment to spend at least 2% of GDP on defence, a benchmark still unmet by several members. Deterrence is not cheap, he says, but weakness costs far more. The statement lands heavily. Some ministers exchange uneasy glances. The fiscal strain is real, budgets are tight, and voters are restless. Yet the logic is unassailable. A video presentation follows, showing satellite imagery of recent Russian air incursions. The footage, grainy but unmistakable, traces flight paths that skirt dangerously close to NATO borders. Each white line on the map represents not just a breach, but a question. How far will Moscow go to test the alliance's resolve? Behind the data lies a broader strategic message. For Russia, these provocations are meant to sow doubt, to probe for hesitation. For NATO, the challenge is to show that there is none. As the evening draws near, a working dinner is held in the main atrium. Conversation flows from security to politics, from logistics to leadership. Off the record, several officials acknowledge what everyone feels. This is a new Cold War, but with hotter edges. Pete Hegseth clinks his glass softly and speaks to a small group of counterparts. We've all seen what happens when deterrence fails, he says. We can't afford that lesson again. His tone is not grandiose, but grounded. The voice of a man who has seen combat and understands consequence. Outside, the lights of Brussels reflect off the wet cobblestones. Cameramen pack up, correspondents dictate closing lines for their evening reports, and motorcades begin to roll out. But inside NATO headquarters, the discussions continue late into the night. In one corner room, aides draft the communiqué, the official statement that will emerge from this summit. It will speak of unity, resilience, and readiness. But beneath the diplomatic language, it carries an unspoken truth. NATO is bracing not just for defence, but for deterrence at a scale unseen in decades. As the final sessions wind down, Mark Rutte returns to the podium. His closing remarks are measured. Our strength lies not in what we say, but in what we do, he tells the ministers. Every aircraft we intercept, every shipment we send to Ukraine, every soldier we train, all of it sends a message. Aggression will not stand. The room rises in applause. It is not the applause of triumph, but of solidarity, the kind that binds allies through uncertainty. As the cameras once again flicker to life, the ministers line up for one last photo. The same faces as before, but this time the expressions are harder, more resolved. They have spent the day confronting the realities of a continent once again living under the shadow of war. And yet amid that shadow, there is also light, the stubborn, disciplined light of collective defence. NATO, 76 years after its founding, stands once more at the edge of history. As the final image fades, flags fluttering against the night sky of Brussels, one line remains clear. The alliance endures because it must, for Ukraine, for Europe, and for the idea that security, however costly, is worth defending together.
Excellencies, may I have your attention, please? If I could ask you to look 5 seconds straight in front of you, please. Thank you. Many thanks.